ready?
Are we ready for music?
Are we actually ready?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, here we go.
Let's get
Now,
this.
Jeff, you're reading it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to Everyone Racers, a show designed for the world of low-dollar racing and oddball car culture. It doesn't matter what kind of La Champ or track dog you run, SCCA or NASA, we won't discriminate. We even think you drifto hella flush folks are all right, as long as you drive it hard and build it yourself. Join us each week for text discussions, tips, tricks, news and notes in the world of low buck racing. And if you're lucky, Chrissy might give you just the tip. Everyone report to the paddock.
This is Chris.
This is Chrissy.
I'm Jeff.
I'm mental.
Hey, everybody.
And Chris says...
Chris
Yeah,
says...
I said hey, everybody, and you interrupted.
Oh,
hey, we are Everyone
sorry.
Racers. Thanks for coming back and listening to another magnum episode of our podcast. Episode
they always fit well.
44. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. That's a great way to start. Fantastic.
Yeah, on that note.
Hey, Jeff, what are you working on if you're
All right, so
inclined?
we are recording this T-minus 2 days, 2.5 days until we leave for the NASA pit race extravaganza.
Mm-hmm.
And last weekend, while Chris and Chrissy were away from their house, I'll let them tell you where they were, I broke in, I pet the cats, I made long-distance phone calls, I ordered lots of things on their cable system.
Awesome.
I broke the Honda, I'll let Chris get into that, and I finished the Miata.
Yay! Yay! That's great.
So I drove the damaged trailer back with Chris's Suburban, left it in the yard, and then
Front yard, not this parking spot, just right in the flower bed, right?
right in the dirt.
Thank goodness. Side
No,
yard
I
where
put
it
it. I
belonged.
put it where it
No,
belonged.
you put it in a nice spot, and you left the trailer,
Yeah.
the truck in the driveway, very nicely parked. Actually, you left everything very nice.
Except the Honda, but we'll get to that. So
Right.
I put the lower control. I basically got an entire corner suspension, rear suspension of the Miata, including the axle, for $150. Slapped it on the Miata. Used the fantastic, what are they? Flying Miata hub stands? Is that the brand,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes,
Gave that
Flying
sucker,
Miata.
Flying Miata gave that sucker a basic, very basic alignment and drove home. Not only did I drive home, but for the last 2 days before I left for my lovely vacation, which I forgot to mention where I am, I drove the Avalanche back and forth to work just to prove that it's not going to run out of gas again.
Okay.
Yay!
So I have a
How that
theory,
goes.
but I freely admit I fix nothing.
Well, you fix it if it fixes, you put gas in it, and that's great. If
Then I
gas
ran out of gas, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, in theory.
in theory. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, the 2500 GM, what are they? GMT 700, 800? Chris? I don't know what
800.
800s. Has 2 gas tanks, and I think my needle never gets below half tank, even when I'm flat empty. So
Well, it's only the 2500s and this like we have that have this weird setup. Mentals has one gas tank. We have that same 26-gallon tank. But then in addition to that, we have this 11-gallon pancake tank below the floor of the cargo area, right above the axle. And that has its separate pump to pump that 11 gallons into the main 26-gallon tank when, as the main tank runs dry. So my bet is that transfer pump is bad on yours, and so that's always full in the back. It's never emptying out into the bigger tank, and therefore the gauge doesn't know what to think. And there you go.
Well, this is how it worked. I hadn't driven the truck in a long time because of the broken spring. I fixed the spring. I looked at the gauge. It said half a tank. I drove it back and forth to Reading, which is about an hour and a half away. I took it to the Cub Scouts. I said, half a tank, that'll be plenty for the Cub Scouts. I drove it around at 1 mile an hour for several hours.
Idling with your
idling,
your AC.
Exactly. It's my 8.1 liter V8.
So yeah, you're still getting terrible gas mileage even at 1 mile.
Terrible gas mileage. And
You just
then
don't know
I
it
started
now.
driving it around town, and all of a sudden it stopped. And I said, well, it's not out of gas. The fuel level still says half a tank.
Yeah,
and I scratched my head and said, oh, it's been that way for about like a week and a half now. Oh, crap.
Yay!
Put 7 gallons in it. It's been running great ever since.
This
That's
thing
what I
ain't
got. Mental.
Ain't got no gas in it.
Mental, I'm sure you have something to say about this.
Actually, I don't have something to say about the Avalanche. I wanted to point out that $150 for an entire rear suspension on the Miata is fantastic. But if you look at it from the perspective of you just spent 75% of what you spent on that total car to put a rear suspension in it.
Oh.
No, I spent way more than that. The metric dollars that I have put into my Miata just to give it away to my father is approximately 10 to 15 times what I spent on it.
Which is still an incredible steal. You can't buy Miata for that cheap. At 10 times cheap.
Have a great time in it this weekend.
I will absolutely.
You're gonna get your 10 times out of it this weekend. That's
Hell
for sure.
Yeah!
So what is this about? You're rolling Friday, hopefully before midnight.
Yes, because I have to pick up you.
Yeah. I can be on the sidewalk with my bag ready to jump in.
Yep, and that's because I'm going to be leaving early on Friday to go get the Civic tuned. And anyway, sorry.
I'm sorry, it's not your turn.
Oh, I thought that was a nice segue, ma'am.
Jeez, that was a great segue.
Okay,
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what you're working on?
Yeah, it's too late now.
No, it's not. It gets better. Okay, so we went on a glorious vacation, and we went to the Hamptons. We had friends for the weekend. It was awesome. We came back to our normal scramble. Work is crazy. Now we're getting ready for HPD. Okay, that's not why I'm saying this. So I have a story. My mom says your Miata is janky. Okay, so in order to not burn pod, none of you know this is happening. My mom told me a funny story, and this is what I've got. So she, and Chris actually hasn't heard it. So my mom comes over on Saturday while Jeff is working on the janky Miata. She comes to feed the cats. Jenks and Jeff was working on leaving.
Oh my God! Did you just give him a call sign?
Sure. Okay, so she's estimated like 8 p.m., right? You said hi, whatever. So my mom was sitting.
I said hi to Chrissy's mom, and I'm going to get it out of the way right now.
Sure.
I said hi to Chrissy's mom in real life.
Right?
She pulled up in her Mazda 5, and I waved at her.
Okay, so she's waiting, sitting in front of my house, waiting for my dad to come down the hill from my sister's house, and they were in separate cars. So Jeff leaves. She waves you or like says something. Goodbye.
Yeah, we talked for a moment.
All right. But both of you were in the car and you were leaving. So she's tired of waiting. She's like, okay, I'm going to just drive down the street. Something flies off Jeff's car.
What?
And she sees it, and she pulls over and picks it up. And then she was like, how do I get this back to Jeff? So she's trying to get your attention. No luck, because you're just, on your way. Like, I got to go.
I was mad-assing out of there. Absolutely.
Right? So you're trying to get out, and so she's trying to figure out how to get this back to you. So she starts driving after you, but apparently you're too fast. And then my dad says to her later, well, he's a race car driver. So my mom's trying to figure out how to get...
I have no idea what fell off, everybody. I'm on pins and needles right now.
Hopefully it's not a wheel.
It flew off your car, and thank goodness it didn't hit my mom's car. My mom's trying to figure out how to get it back to you. So she's like, she was going to catch up to you, roll her window down, and throw it at you. But she couldn't catch up with you. So first of all, any ideas what this could be?
0. 0.0 knowledge of what fell off my car.
The theory.
What?
Because it's small enough for your mom to throw and big enough to fly through the air.
Yep. All of these things. So
okay.
my next.
I'm gonna guess.
Okay, go ahead, guess.
Is it the license plate?
No. No. So my next question is, since I have not given you any clues, Chris, have you put away your tools lately? And is it missing?
I put away most of them, and I haven't checked thoroughly because I've been in a hurry.
Okay. Well, something is missing.
Okay.
And it should be. It is a socket.
It is a 10 millimeter socket.
It is an 18 millimeter socket.
18 millimeter.
My 18. That's the only one.
Your 18 millimeter socket, which my mom has sent me a picture, and she and I looked in your drawer, and absolutely is the last night when you cleaned your tools, the 18 is the only one that is missing.
Wait, deep or shallow? I gotta know.
Deep. It was the good iron one, like the good one.
The wheel? Was it used
No,
the wheel?
No, it's something else. It's an impact socket, but I only use it on GM things. That's why I haven't noticed it's missing.
Oh, I thought we use it for something else.
No.
So,
well, we definitely use it on the Miata, and I know exactly what the last thing was that I bolted on it.
Right?
Yep.
So then, it flew off, and it should be in our storm drain right now if it weren't for my mother driving behind you. The bigger problem is that if she was anywhere closer to you and this actually hit her car, her windshield, something like that, this actually could have been an actual problem.
I don't know how that would have flown anywhere.
Well, hey,
it was attached to a wheel.
So why didn't it come back to the house when your mom was here twice today?
Oh, it did.
Oh, okay.
I had it. I hid it from you, and
she's got it in her pocket.
Got it.
I had it in my hand, and then I put it in a box, and I will give it back to you after the show.
Thanks.
So just the tip. Keep your tools in the toolbox, not in your car, folks.
That is not so. My mom tells me this. She's like, found a janky Miata, and so now she now uses our vernacular. Mom, sorry, not sorry, and she didn't want to get you in trouble, but she thought it was a hilarious story. So, don't when you borrow things from people, and go back and listen to the beginning of this show, because the whole front of the show is Jeff was like, I did a great job. I put tools away. I did all things. Well, you didn't, because one of them ended up on our street and almost hit my mom's car.
Well, fantastic.
Okay, Chris, what are you working on?
I finished the motor in the Civic. It runs fine. It has oil pressure. All is well. Yay.
Yay.
And on Friday, the reason Chrissy's not coming with me is I have to leave work at 11:30 to make it to the dyno to have it tuned at the appointment I could get on Friday. And it's already an hour and a half west of here, which is an hour and a half closer to pit race, so I am not coming back. So Jeff's going to pick up Chrissy on the way, and we'll meet you all there.
Hopefully before midnight.
Yeah. I'm not holding my breath. All right.
Sorry, not sorry.
Look, either we're going to be there fine, or we ain't getting there, because it's going to be terrible. It's either going to hella break, or it's going to be hella fine.
It'll be hella fine. I'm just
Either
not,
way,
not usually
Jeff,
the most punctual person. So
Jeff, do not text while you're driving. And
he won't.
I
I'm
won't.
coming with him, so I can text.
That's right.
I will not be touching my phone with Chrissy in the car.
I might
18 millimeter socket like brass knuckles.
No, I might feed you some M&Ms.
That's okay.
So I've also had to fix the Civic because Jeff broke it. In the time you put it off the lift, backed it out of the garage, let it run very nicely, gave it a heat cycle, which I asked you to do, and then at the end pulled it back in. Okay. We
Correct.
had the whole front bumper off, the whole front bumper assembly. It's the bumper cover, the air dam, and the splitter. All comes off as one piece now. After that, there's a support piece that kind of sticks out the front that holds the splitter up. When Jeff came back into the garage, that support piece got caught on the lip of the driveway, bent back, and yanked the threads out of the bung on the bottom of the intercooler, and yanked that whole thing out. So I didn't know this until I looked at it and said, oh, look at that thing is bent. So I had to take it apart. Eventually what I did is there are 3 support bungs at the bottom of the intercooler. I had to cut the middle one off, which is what this one was. So now it's only held up by 2 because that one was totally fragged. And then bolt the support bracket to the previous tab. So it's all back together now. I think it's fine, but that was an hour I wasn't excited about spending. Hey, I also made a nice jacking point, too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So for those of you who think that, some random place on the bottom of the support bracket, how would Jeff know it's there? Chris, do you want to tell him how Jeff should know it's there?
Because you made it and put it on.
Because I'm the one that built it.
Yes. Yeah.
And you swear that you didn't hear any kind of crash, scrape, nothing?
Oh, no, I heard a scrape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
I looked underneath. I didn't see what it was.
Yeah. So anyway, I made a nice jacking point, too, because with a splitter, you couldn't get to the front jacking point at all. So what I did is I made a sandwich plate, one on each side of the splitter, bolted them together, and then on the top side of it, I welded a piece of roll cage tubing. So it's between the splitter and the crossmember, and it actually touches the crossmember just barely when the splitter's on. So if you jack at the bottom of the jacking point under the splitter, it just pushes up into some roll cage tubing onto the crossmember, and you can jack it right up without taking the splitter off. So I was pretty pleased with myself for that. And,
so Jeff created an opportunity for improvement.
Well, it had nothing to do with Jeff's thing. That was just a different hour that I had to spend fixing something. So anyway, all done. Mental, what are you up and up to?
Mental, sorry, it took us a long time to get to you.
It's all good. Now, we've been looking at the numbers lately, and we've actually picked up a lot of listeners that probably aren't our friends and don't know us. And I want to point out that at the racetrack,
so sorry.
Jeff, yes, we're so sorry, but thank you. Jeff is like the clutch guy. When the car comes in on the hook, Jeff's the guy. So don't go thinking like Jeff's incompetent. Jeff just had a bad day.
Lots of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Bad day, a bad experience, 3 weekends.
The incompetent guy is me. I'm the one breaking stuff. So all right. What am I working on? So as you,
what are you working on?
I don't know.
three
You
of
tell
may have
us.
noticed, Major Ward is back. Intro week for my cadets. So we started out with 2. We've got 8 cadets that have been showing up this week, learning basic facing movements, doing PT, making us look good, running laps around the school. My assistant principal comes up and goes, "Are those your cadets running?" "Yes, they are, sir. Those are my cadets running a mile." So now, and then Saturday I get the opportunity to spend a great bit of time with some outstanding young folks having fun at the Drive Strong Atlanta Teen Driver Training. That's supported by BMW and Atlanta Motorsports Park. So I had 3, actually all buddies in my car. Their parents all paid for them to come to this driving course. It was really interesting because we simulate a lot of real-world emergency situations and teach the kids how to deal with the car. And the dynamic was funny because when we first started out, every time they got a little bit of wheel spin, they'd immediately freak out and back off. And we really want them to induce wheel spin. We want the car out of control because we want them to initiate the recovery procedures. And if you got 3 friends, you've got that one crazy one. And so the one crazy one got in the wheel, and he full up took this BMW for a 360, and all his friends were like, "Ah!" And they looked at me like I was going to yell at him. I'm like, "Okay, no, now this is good. Now I want you to initiate the recovery procedures." And the rest of the day, they had no problem putting that car over its limits, including what Chrissy would love is our favorite exercise, where we establish an autocross course. And then we have them drive the autocross course while we deliberately distract them. We make them post something on Instagram or tweet, or I had them searching satellite radio, and their friends are in the back screaming, and we're making a bunch of racket. And every time we hit a cone, I'm like, "By the way, that's a $500 wheel. That's a mailbox that just cracked your windshield."
Any small children?
Yeah, that's
Nice.
a 4-year-old that lives down the street.
Nice.
So kind of reinforce that lesson. And they're like, "Yeah, you're kind of mean and loud." And one of the instructors said, "I could hear you in the car at the other end of the course. You wanted him to put it on liquid metal radio station." Yes, I did.
That's
So
awesome.
I accomplished our goal.
Excellent.
All right.
Yeah, we
We've got a
thought
lot
something.
to cover this next-
I would just say we
do.
definitely could tell that you are back to school because you have much less hair and a lower blood alcohol content. So that's a pretty good indication. Yeah.
So Mental, these are like high school freshmen you have running around, right?
At school, high school freshmen for the Drive Strong Atlanta, it's anyone that has had their license less than a couple of years or just has the 3 guys in my car just had a learner's permit. But yeah, these are all freshmen. These are all 15-year-olds.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
no, I was
corrupting the
gonna-
youth, Mental. This is
Yeah,
wonderful.
exactly. I was going to ask, when those high school freshmen are running around in a mile, do you put on your little shorts and show them how it should be done, or do you just sit on the corner and tell them to go faster?
I've actually got my cadet deputy commander and one of my operations commander were out running with them. And so she's out there embarrassing them. "Hey, you need to run faster. You need to run faster." I saved the real humiliation for when PT comes. Although I did do push-ups with them today and had to school them on that a little.
That's awesome.
Alrighty.
Mhm. Cool. Say, time for news and notes.
News and notes.
Fantastic. So, Mental, you want to start us off with what happened at Champ Car?
All right, so we're skipping everything else?
I thought Champ Car was the first thing on the list. Champ Car
Oh,
at
Champ Car.
Brainerd.
I'm sorry. Never mind. Champ Car. I've got that up for Jeff. So Champ Car at Brainerd International Raceway. We had some picks last week, and we've highlighted what some of these teams did. Spoiler alert, we're still bad at this.
Sure.
And
Well,
we'll just keep it quick. That's all.
okay. Team Quadrifoglio, the Alfa Romeo, didn't do so well on Saturday. We're 23rd overall, and then 3rd on Sunday, so they brought it back up.
No. They only got 3 laps on Sunday. They were 23rd both days. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, that's an important number to miss.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
They didn't
smart.
do so very
But
well.
here's the thing: the difference between 23rd place and Champ Car is apparently 76 laps because they got 23rd place with 3 laps and 23rd place with 79 laps.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
fantastic.
Wow.
Good for them. The Mow-em Down Acura TL got 19th and 15th, so well done. Well done, gentlemen.
Jeff,
Hey,
we got
if you
something
want-
for you in there.
I was going to say, if you want consistency, 1986 Oldsmobile Cutlass. That's
Heck
Eric
yeah.
Rude's pick. Got 22nd on both days.
There we go. So they must have had at
Doesn't
least
look like there's a whole lot of movement
80.
around.
So they
here.
got they got 70 on one day and 4 on the
4,
other.
exactly.
Right?
It's apparently enough.
And that's not true, Northern Shiners. We just didn't have time to throw your laps in. The IFW Motorsports, one of my 2 V8 powered picks, the 1999 Pontiac Firebird. They got 7th on Saturday and stepped that up to 4th on Sunday. And all I can say is, yeah!
Hey, Jeff,
All right.
why don't you tell everybody where you are, because we can hear all the frolicking behind you.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot to get to that.
Yeah.
So I am in lovely Knoebels, which is a family-owned amusement park in central Pennsylvania. I'm literally in a picnic grove next to a babbling brook. So if you hear people shouting, I'm not killing children. They're just enjoying the log flume.
And they say, Dad, 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 over and over again.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, back to racing.
My family is doing some mini golf. So I stole an hour to do the podcast.
Excellent.
All right, back to racing. So speaking of Lucky Dog, they were at WeatherTech Laguna this weekend. The Praying Mantis won overall day 1.
And a BMW, and if I had it queued up, I would have
Boring.
But my boys in the Screaming Chicken in their Trans Am, well, they finished 48th out of the 55 cars that started.
Hey, Blue Cheetahs, day 2, they took the overall. There we go.
Cool.
All right, I was moving away from the picnicking family, so hopefully I'm a little clearer now. And I have no idea where we are on the notes. So.
All right, so also now the Screaming Chicken boys actually managed 9th on Sunday in their Trans Am.
Yeah.
But, Jeff, as we talked about, and I'll let you take this, the WRL Grand Prix at Peachtree.
Oh, yeah, so let me see here. I have the first thing on that. Let me get there. I got it. So as we spoke last this week, WRL Peachtree Grand Prix. Basically, Saturday there was R&R Racing, won with 284 laps. Sunday DNF. GP2 was Noises. How do we pronounce that? Any idea?
I copied and pasted it. I think Noises.
Noises.
Like Jersey when you say
200
noises. Like,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So they got 291 laps. So GP2 actually got more laps than GP1 on Sunday, but would lose by 23.8 seconds to Chris's favorite, the Clown Shoe Motorsports.
Wow.
Not Chris's favorite, but there it is.
That was your pick. That was Chris's pick, yeah.
That was picture. Yeah. So GT3 went to Casey Carden, 213, and an NA Miata with 281 laps.
wow.
But lost by 2 laps after battling a leaking axle seal boot. My brain right now is going axle seal boot.
Oh.
Did I seal that?
Did you do that? Oh,
Nope.
no.
GT4, Team Hoser, both days. The other car DNF'd because there was only 2 in GT4. And GTO did not get won by my favorite DSMs. Overall Sunday was handily won by BBY Racing, number 4 Mustang with 307 laps.
Okay, so we're getting into some controversy here. There's an email release. WRL had this to say, so stay with us. This is a little bit long, but good controversy here. Good controversy, if you could say that. Okay,
drama.
WRL. Drama, WRL and numerous competitors suspected one of 2 car team making horsepower well in excess of the claimed by the team. Following an official protest by a competitor, series officials utilized an electronic device to verify their horsepower pursuant to Appendix B,
Of the
8.1.9, blah, 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 the rulebook. This device is also installed in 5 other cars, including class winners on Saturday's Enduro. WRL's horsepower estimations from the onboard electronic devices correlated with the competitors' declarations in the dyno plots, with the exception of the team in question, whose car showed power numbers slightly above their claimed power.
Significantly above their
Significant.
claimed power. Not slightly.
Significantly. That's not a word you want to mess up here. In addition to the team's second car was protested by having an oversized fuel cell. Upon steward's inspection, it was discovered that the provenance of the car and its factory fuel capacity had been misrepresented by the series. The team
to the series.
To the series. Gosh, do you want to read this? The team was
That's kind of critical.
The team was made aware of the infraction and an attempt to allow the team to arrive and to their team. And their arrive, I'm tired. The drive customers to compete, they were assigned a max fuel limit commensurate with 115 of the OEM capacity. 115%. The team initially compiled, but later bypassed this maximum fill rule by refueling twice in the 6-lap window at the end of the race, adding fuel in excess of the revised market capacity. Chief Stewart deemed this to be an attempt to gain advantage in violation of the intent, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. Go.
So WRL goes on to state, due to the flagrant nature of the stated horsepower violation, the fuel-related offenses, and the general attitude of this team toward the series and its competitors, and the team's repeated denial of any infractions, one of the team's cars received a disqualification from the event, and the team principal has received a lifetime ban from the series.
Yo, this is some serious stuff.
Yeah, totally. So you're next, Jeff, by the way.
Oh, okay. So on the Facebook group Endurance Racing USA, the team who built the car have given a very technical and thorough discussion of defending their build and their horsepower representation. It's fascinating but divisive discussion going on. Reports from some anonymous witnesses at the event, as well as some vocal ones on Facebook. The attitude of the team was very hostile at the track, according to them. And even though the engine discussion is ongoing, there is no mention of the fuel. And more importantly, no one is mentioning the second part.
And again, we quote from the email from WRL. Following the event and award ceremony, a member of the team in question entered one of their race cars that remained on pit road after impound and proceeded to do a burnout at high speed through a crowd of drivers, their crews, guests, and families, including small children who had gathered for the trophy presentation. The driver of this car fled after being confronted by the series and track security while they attempted to escort from the property. This driver is no longer allowed on Road Atlanta property.
Holy cow.
So talking to some folks, they were not doing well with the penalties they've been emphasized, and the guy decides to do a burnout. And then, and just like New Jersey, Road Atlanta, that's Georgia State Trooper territory. So when you get involved with law enforcement on Road Atlanta, you're having a talk with the Smokey the Bear.
Well, someone's taking things a little too seriously all around.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with the WRL, since we have a lot of new listeners, they are the World Racing League, and they use a horsepower to weight classing system, and they base that horsepower off of what you declare. So you show up with a Civic and you say, look, I did nothing to it. It's X amount of horsepower. Or you say, hey, I added headers and this and this. Here's a dyno sheet proving what I did.
They also do it based on what your OEM representation is. And then you can claim a modifier. So if you say, well, the OEM horsepower is this, and I modified it with headers, then they class you accordingly.
You get like a +1.
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway.
All right. Don't be a jerk.
Hey, listen.
Don't be a jerk.
They need to listen to our episode of How Not to Be a D-Bag at the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
maybe we should send it.
We didn't mention not doing burnouts in the paddock when there's a bunch of people around. Maybe we should.
We mentioned
we did mention revving the engine near children and pedestrians.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I think we called it the biggest D-bag rule ever.
Uh-huh. Hey, but you know it's a great place to rev your engine, not at children, but just because revving your engines are fun, mental.
Ooh, that's an excellent. So, Extreme Experience. That's right. Rev your engine in Extreme Experience because they put you in the driver's seat of the world's best supercars at over 20 racetracks in America and Canada with no speed limits, no shifting restrictions, and no governors. Head over to xxspeed.com and choose your supercar, find a racetrack near you, and start making a story of your own because they've got 7 exotic models of supercars to choose from. They have 20-plus tracks in a year-round location in New Orleans, Louisiana with my loved 3,200-foot straightaway. Pro instructors like Chris, Jeff, or this weekend, me, Mental Ward at New Jersey Motorsports Park with Extreme Experience. Come on down, bring the kids, folks. In the car with you, helping you explore the car's limits and learning how to drive the racing line. Save 25%. That is 25% when you use the code EveryoneRacers, all one word, at XXP to book today. Extreme Experience. Folks, it's your turn.
It's my turn.
Hey, Mental, are you riding the Nighthawk up for this one again?
The VFR, and
VFR, yeah.
No. But you know what? I did get my GV hard bags installed on there, so the next time you see me on the VFR, I won't have a backpack.
Fantastic.
He said hard bag.
Plural.
Uh-huh. Say some listener feedback. This is from Steve the Dishwashing Fairy to Jeff. He says, Jeff, you're a hella sweet wrench. I'm a but terrible wrench, but even I know you can't wrench on rust or the empty spaces where metal once resided. I discovered that the sad day we found terminal rust in the Wagga van. Let the avalanche go. Some redneck somewhere can put it to good use, not naming names.
He happens to be a redneck on this podcast.
Yeah.
That is legitimate feedback. I did not coach that.
You're right.
We already said hi to Chrissy's mom, so let's get to the main topic.
Yeah.
Hey,
Start us
topic
off.
time.
All right, I'm going to start us off. So we are talking driver setup. So I had suggested this topic because the last HPD. So first of all, I'm just going to tell you to get Ross Bentley's book. That's the answer. We all listen to his podcast, Speed Secrets, and if you don't, you should. But I admittedly didn't know much about him. So sorry, not sorry. I just didn't. So the last HPD we went to, the classroom talk, referenced his book about 15 times. So I caved and bought it, and everybody was like, "Oh, I found this in here, and I found this in here." I'm just like, okay. So I bought it. So I'm not all the way through it yet, but he breaks down into a few sections, which pair nicely together. And the first chapter talks about the importance of driver setup. So that includes seat, steering wheel, how well you can reach a shifter and pedals, gauge setup, and more. So that's what's driving this conversation today. So we spent, especially since we spent a good amount of time in the car, having the proper setup is super important. Often if you have a few seconds to check your gauges while you're going on straight, it has to be self-explanatory. So you just have to be comfortable. Okay, so I am going to start on the topic of seat position and comfort. So when building a car, you just put the seat in and that's what's around. I know in our circle of friends, we have swapped seat in every vehicle. Many times we need a second seat for the passenger for instruction, and we'll just take whatever's fit and is legal and just good enough. But when you're sitting the whole time, more importantly, you have the driver feel through your butt. And of course, Ross Bentley says every time they say it, nicer than just talking about your butt. But the seat's actually the most important thing in the driver's setup. So there are many aspects that go into the seat positioning, size, and a whole bunch of other things that I'm going to talk about, but those are two major aspects to consider. Positioning has to do with seats on sliders to accommodate different size drivers, which we do. And if so, the slider should go up and forward to make it help for people that are shorter and make it go be closer and have better feel. Yes.
Just a quick thing that just want to clarify that because I think this is a big help for people who haven't put their sliders in. Like when you put them in at a big angle so that the short people go up higher because the front of it's angled up higher than the back, and then the tall people go back lower so they get more clearance on the roll bar. So it's actually a way you set up putting the sliders in that will help more than just forward back for people. So
good point.
Okay, so sometimes the seat's stationary and use little back pads to boost you up closer to the pedals. While this works, it's not ideal because you lose some of that feel because your back is buffered against that pad. Also, size. Okay, this is the other one. Relative to all your drivers on your team, which is obviously complicated because most people don't have the same size drivers. We had a Kirky, which is a one-piece all-metal set with a dinky cushion on top in the boat, and I was completely dwarfed by this seat, even with the padding. So my arms didn't fit inside when they were close, so I had to drive with my elbows outside the metal containment. I was trying to come up with what I look like when I sit like this, but I couldn't come up with a way to explain it.
You look like Hannibal Lecter when he's being wheeled around on the hand truck and introduced to the governor.
That's a good thought. Yeah, that's exactly what you look like.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Well,
I don't need
the sides
people,
of the Kirky are meant for larger, ample gentlemen to hug their torsos, and their arms just drop right down, right? But you could basically tuck your elbows in next to you inside the thing. So
yes. So I think I had to drive most of it with the outside because it didn't fit exactly inside, and it's not comfortable. So I
used to tuck one
miserable.
arm in sometimes.
Well, it was. Either way, it was completely miserable. I was bruised when I got out. I was sore, and obviously I couldn't do my best driving because actually. Then I had completely sad recollection of actually driving that car. So it's true. I was like thinking about this. I was like, I just hated that seat, so I hated driving the car. So another important consideration is FIA certification. Is it required in your series where you're going to drive? Does the seat pass tech inspection for your series? Some places don't have adjustable seat backs. They won't allow that. So is your seat expired? So you need a seat back brace. That's a really common thing that's happening in the series these days. Some materials to consider. Aluminum is cheap, can be strong, easiest to make mounts for usually, and you can drill it through anywhere. Steel frames with padding are cheap, heavy, and effective. Fiberglass Kevlar are preferred as lighter weight and better support. Carbon is the same but lighter. Next one, halo or not. Halos are good to keep your head in place, but avoid the need for a center and window net in some series, but do make emergency egress more difficult because you can't get out of them and they kind of block your door. And they're also more expensive, so plan accordingly. Really take into consideration how your seat is set. It might take you longer to put the sliders on, but everything you add to make the driver more comfortable is totally worth it.
And make sure you move the seat before you put your belts on. Especially at pit stop.
Yes.
First thing, seat, right spot. Okay, now belts, go.
Okay,
Yes.
Mental, you want to go?
All right, now I know that we all travel different cars, I'm not humble bragging, but I think I do it more than you guys. I think I sit in more race cars a year. You guys get more laps.
You totally
I think
do.
I sit in more race cars.
Yeah.
So let's start with the communication aspect of it. Now, well in advance, you're going to need to know what radio setup they have. Normally, the big question is NASCAR or IMSA, and for those who may not understand the difference, it's the plug. NASCAR is the big plug. Think like a guitar amplifier, and IMSA is the same width, but it's usually a stubby one. You can get a converter fairly cheap, but if you're like me, you forget that until you show up at the track, say like when I get into the Honda.
You're not the only one.
I know. Well, and just today, while I was typing that up, I just went onto eBay and typed in converter, and it's on its way. It'll be here Tuesday because stop goofing off, Mental. Get the equipment you need. So IMSA's the short, stubby one. Now, I've even showed up with a team that they ran an old school 5-pin radio setup, like the old keyboard connector from back in the day that you used on your desktop computer. So don't assume your setup's going to work even if the plugs are correct. You're going to have to get in the car, turn it on, plug it in. On certain occasions, different headsets and converters, they don't like digital radios or they don't like analog radios, or your microphone impedance isn't correct for the setup. And I'm not smart enough to understand all that. I know Jim is, and Jim's done some work with us on that before, but I've gotten into cars where my mic didn't work, but my headphones did. And you need to know that long ahead of the time. So as soon as you get to the track, get in the car, check your communication, which segues into point 2. Now, Chrissy gave a lot of really good information about seating and comfort. And in endurance, this is key. And 3-Pedal Mafia does a really good job of accommodating all sizes, particularly, and Chris, you mentioned the sliders you use. Go ahead and say those again, though.
Well, I just usually modify stock. The Honda, I have modified stock sliders, but the biggest difference is just making them at an angle. So when the seat is back, it is low.
She said something.
The other ones? The Jeep ones,
because
yeah.
they're double locking and they're safe.
Oh, yeah, a Jeep TJ Wrangler, so a
TJ,
97 to 05 Wrangler. They look exactly like the ones that Sparco sells you, and Sparco charges $100 for them, and you can buy them at a boneyard for $30 off a Wrangler because no one else wants them, but they are flat, even side to side, double locking, and I like the fact that they've had to pass OEM crash tests for all these things. So you know they're going to be pretty good.
There's 6 brass pins and they're locking them up, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Can you use that on any car? The bolts, or you make a bracket if you have to.
Brackets, right? You have to make brackets, but the nice thing about them is that they're even on both sides, because a lot of cars have uneven ones. Like one side is up higher and the other one's lower, and they're different lengths and different widths.
Porsche.
These are exactly
they're square.
Right, they're mirror image and square, and they're only like an inch thick. So they really don't add much height either, where some of them are a lot thicker. So Jeep TJ.
Which is helpful when you're doing a seat.
They also have a bar that goes across both of them.
Yep.
So the adjuster is a giant handle. Not giant handle, but it's
but
very
it's a good
easy
solid
to find.
piece when you're
Good
wearing a
solid
glove.
piece, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Not
we've
just
had
like
that
one
in-
little tab.
We've used that bracket in the Rolls Royce, and we use it in the passenger seat for the Civic. I just made a bracket, and it bolts right in and out. And it's really easy. So, thanks, Mental.
Yeah. So now a lot of the teams that I run with, there's some bigger fellows. It's let's say linebacker build, but in contrast, Todd Carver and Rocksteady Racing out there, they run a really tight seat, which genuinely I prefer. In fact, that's what I have on my daily driver. I fit in that and I enjoy it, but some of the other teammates have been unable to drive even if they fit in the seat because their legs hit their steering wheel. Now, Road and Track and Friends, they run a flat bottom Sparco steering wheel for this reason, because it's got some thick thighs in there. And there's also just a slight difference in body types, and Chrissy touched on this because Chrissy is not a short person. She's fit, but you're not like, you're not a little tiny person.
I'm not.
So we're talking about now the first time I ever drove Black Betty in AER, I fit in the seat just fine, but the shoulder brace was digging right into the top of my ball, my rotator socket of my shoulder. And it was miserable, like being pinched by Mr. Spock the entire time. But it was a Kirky seat that she'd mentioned, so we were able to take a rubber mallet and make a fine adjustment to get it just outside the shoulders. You can't do that with a fiberglass or carbon seat. You're going to want to know that well ahead of time. You may have to adjust some padding. So sit in the car, and on top of that, just from a safety perspective, you need to practice ingress and egress. They talked about the halo seats. Some of that stuff's going to catch. Where's your radio cord on this one? Where's your cool shirt? All of that. And then finally, the last thing, you got to know the car. So put on your helmet, put on your Hans, get into the car and sit down and look. Can you see the mirrors? Can you see the mirrors on the outside? Where are your blind spots going to be, especially if you're driving with a halo seat? Next, you want to talk to the builder and the team principal. Sometimes they're the same people, sometimes they're not. Talk to the main wrench. What are they looking for? What are they worried about? What's going to break? What's been giving them problems? What do they know, and what do they need to know from you? What issues have shown up before, and what systems do you need to monitor? Where is that gauge? That gauge on the system that they told you to monitor. And when you're sitting in the car with your helmet and your Hans on, can you see that gauge? Do you know how to read that gauge? Do you know what's good, what's bad on that gauge, and do you understand it? And Chris, I know you've got some further information on this.
I just love the fact that you're even thinking about this as the guy who puts the car together and has to fix it when it breaks. This fact that someone else is thinking about, hey, do I know what the gauges are and what they should be so we're in good shape before we start? So big wet kiss for you on that. Thank you. So that's a great, thanks for the nice segue, Mental. Let's talk about driver information in the car. A lot of this depends greatly on how modified your car is and how much you and your team will actually care about it. For a fairly stock car, keep it simple. Get an oil and water temp, oil pressure. That's all you really need, just to make sure that you're not going to melt down and you have some oil pressure. There you go. As you get more modified, you might want some more things, like we have air-fuel ratio, exhaust gas temperature boost. We have all those as well. Volts is nice to know, so when you throw your alternator belt, Chrissy, you might have some idea of why the car is
Wait,
running as well.
that gauge actually doesn't work, right? It's
no,
okay when it's zero?
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
good.
And that red light on the dash that looks like a battery, don't worry about that. That's fine, too.
No, I did okay on that one.
So
and
anyway,
flammable means flammable?
Who knew? Right. So you need to have gauges that are important to you and your setup. You don't want to have just a useless gauge. Like we had the boost gauge for a long time before we had boost, so it was kind of useless. But I had the hole in the dash, so I left it there. Anyway, everyone just started to ignore it. They still ignore it for the most part. So really,
you said, what does it look? It was like it's got numbers on it.
What's the boost? Right, yes. How's that gauge?
This is exactly what we should be talking about. Don't do. Right? Do not do this.
Don't be like us, kids. That's a lot of people. They learn from us.
Danger to manifold.
Yeah. So you have to make the gauges easy to read. Put the most important ones at the top, closest to eye level, so people can see them more easily. Rotate your gauges in their holes so that the needle, when it's where it should be, is pointing straight up. That way someone can quick glance at the gauges. Are all the needles pointing straight up? If they are, fantastic. I don't have to look at them anymore. If they're off straight
love
up,
that. I love it.
Yeah,
I think it's
off straight
great.
up, then that's when you know you have to look at more
erasing
detail.
stuff in my notes as you speak. Keep going.
My notes were there before yours. You knew it was
I
there.
know. I wrote from here. Go on, keep going.
Fine. So, also, you can consider writing on the gauge panel or putting stickers on it, like where the bad zone is. Like, I love this. We drove one of Spank's cars. I think it was the Moke. And all it has is it's a tack and an oil pressure gauge. No, oil pressure, water temp. That's all it has. So the oil pressure gauge has a Sharpie line written that says slow, and then a little further up the gauge it says pit, and then a little further up the gauge it says stop now. So anybody can be in the car, and if it's clearing up toward those, you have clear instructions of what you're supposed to do with those. So if you especially have different people in your car, or you really just think your teammates are all just total idiots and need that extra help, fine, do it. Put something on there, right, Mental?
Absolutely. Now, and I talk about the different teams. I run with two teams that run a really nice AIM dash, and both of them, interestingly enough, are running different. They're running Miatas, two different generations of Miatas, but the AIM dashes have alarm lights on the side for you can set them up for different things because they're completely programmable. And both of them have completely different alarms because they're concerned about different things. Mm-hmm. One of the things we didn't have running Maryland last weekend is we didn't have an alarm set for overheating because primarily that cars always run in the fall and then spring in colder areas. This is the first time we ran in Kentucky in the summer. So we had overheating issues, and we had to know because it was all on that tiny little aim dash where the temperature reading was, and we made it a team policy to give a temperature reading every time you came down the main straight.
Cool, good to do. Especially if your team is slacking on something, you need them to pay attention to it. Make a rule like that, because that gets the attention. So if your car's a manual, you need a tack. Stock tacks are often wrong, actually. Like ours, for example, really, ours is about 500 RPM off near redline. And I've compared it to what the readout is in the ECU when we get it hooked up to the laptop. The odometer is much closer. That's only about 100 RPM off. So really, on our Honda, this gauge can say 7,000, and we're still not at the limiter. And it's even though it's set lower than that. So just get something that's accurate. Even better than gauges are big idiot lights, potentially even with alarms. If your team really needs that, you can do that too. It's like we have a trailer marker light as an oil pressure gauge.
Is that why you put that punchy box thing in the boat the last time I drove it? Oh.
Yeah.
I
only hooked that up for you.
When the boxing glove hits you in the head, you over-revved.
Exactly.
All right.
So we've got the oil pressure light on a separate sender. It's the top of the gauge panel. It's a big red light. If you miss it, then something is really wrong with you. Other people have temperature overheat lights, and really clever people to set up a coolant pressure warning light. So when your cooling system gets below like 4 psi, which means you just blew a hose or you're low on water, it lets you know so you can get in before you totally can't cook
we
your
should
head
have had
gasket.
that for Jeff.
Right? Jeff? For the Wartburg?
Right, Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
So
you didn't have that.
in general,
Look, no. When it's out of water, temperature gauge doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. Good thing to know. Actually, really, that's a nice thing to know. When there's no water touching the gauge sender, it doesn't say anything. Or it'll give a
That's
really
why
high
you need a
reading
pressure gauge, just like Chris said.
Right. So basically, you have to give enough information to the driver to keep the car from failing. Enough help, if you trust them enough, you can give them a little bit more to make sure that you can tune it well and push the envelope. If you don't trust them, just stick to idiot lights and keep it simple. And speaking of trying to idiot-proof things, Jeff, what do you think about all this?
Wow. No, that's actually what my thing says.
Wah, wah.
So
You're still writing it, so we don't even know what you're talking
Well,
about.
I'm fixing things because I didn't get to read all of your stuff before I got here. I'm too busy on the tilt-a-whirl.
Tilt-a-whirl.
The tilt and hurl. Yeah. So as always, I'm going to talk about things that are less than perfect. So when you're janky and you're driving janky things, and also in our business, you're putting people in the car who aren't sure of it, who haven't been on it. Mental said, we didn't put in this gauge because we all knew about it. Chris said, mark things that they're idiot proof. That's what I'm talking about. Idiot proof. So, my phone keeps turning off here. Hold on a second. There we go.
And that's your notes too. It's a shame.
I know, it's my notes. So you need to think for the driver. A lot of times we need to check a gauge and we call the driver and we say, what does the temperature say? Do you know what o'clock everything should be? Chris mentioned that they're clocking them, but do you know if noon is good or 1 is bad or 2 is bad or 3 is bad? What's a 12 mean? What's a 14 mean? Someone in the paddock should know what all the gauges look like so you can say, top left, that gauge, where's the needle pointing? Sometimes they're not going to be able to read it. Sometimes if they're like Omar, they're just going to reply,
it's fine.
Gauges look good. No, that's not what we want.
They're
Where
there.
is the needle?
The needle points at numbers. Yeah, points at numbers.
It's up.
Yeah, it's up. But
It's up.
actually, it's up is probably something you're going to be able to get out of a driver more than you're going to get, say, it's pointing at 12 or it's pointing at 14. So that's why I'm saying you should know. Has anybody ever taken a picture of the lights so that you have it? I don't know. Good thought. So here's some other things. You shouldn't live with things that are bad. You should fix them. Chrissy already mentioned how horrible the seat was in the boat. We talked all the time about making a custom insert. We never did. Custom inserts are going to be a lot better than your standard old butt pad. If you Google how to make a 2-part expanding foam custom insert, you'd be surprised at how easy it is. It's basically pouring goo in a trash bag. Chrissy, did we ever make you one? No.
I made myself a seat that had from the what do you call it? Tempur-Pedic. Remember, made a Tempur-Pedic little. It still didn't help the side though. That's my problem.
But we could have made that with a custom insert. We just never did.
You just said screw you.
We just said who cares? So Chrissy
That's
actually mentioned one of the bad things about the seat, but she didn't mention the other part. If you adjusted the seat back because you're tall, you actually couldn't reach the shifter. The gears that went up,
absolutely right.
Get there.
You
Look,
kind of push it forward with your.
About that.
Exactly, they push it forward with your fingertips.
You're like dainty. Yes.
It's like that guy driving the bus on the internet with 2 fingers. But anyway, we should have fixed these, and this is our fault. So this is where you don't do what we do. We could have bent the giant phallic-shaped shifter to wherever we needed it. We could have made a custom insert, but we didn't. We could have used a porter power to squeeze in that aluminum seat, and we didn't. So we need to do it more often. I am going to say that I saw a really cool thing on the IMSA Streets of Toronto race the other day. A guy was a little short guy, and he had to go into the car, and instead of having his butt pad, like carrying it with him and shoving it in the seat, it was sewn to the inside of his race suit. So that
I guess that's dedication to your butt pad, but
he said it never shifted, it never moved, and it gave him better feel of the car. So there you go. If you're really short, you take care of it, not the car itself. But this is just what I want to end with. Build naturally. Does the does the cutoff switch work like a normal key? Does the shifter able to be reached by human arms? These are all things that you should look at and make natural if you're going to be putting in your car that they might not make sense. They might not have a lot of practice in.
That's a great point about the kill switch, Jeff. You've got to have it in a spot that the driver can see and reach and will kind of naturally reach for. Like, that's why we try to put ours right by the ignition switch, because your right hand naturally, like, just from years of driving on the street, unless you have a Porsche, your right hand goes to turn the ignition key off, and that makes it easy. So keep it close.
And make it turn the proper direction.
Yeah.
That big deal.
Clockwise is on, counterclockwise is off, just like every street car.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Mental, you got something?
2 things on there, and one of the things is your point about don't put up with things that are bad. You know, Lemons is an evolving series, and there is a mentality of Lemons of just make it work and get out there and take the checkered flag. That doesn't translate well. If your car and your team start to evolve, you're going to be going a lot faster, and that just make it work mentality doesn't work. All of the 3-pedal Mafia cars are alarmingly quick. The Black Betty, the TR got scary towards the end of its lifespan. The Ombre, of course.
The TR was scary every race it was ever in.
Parked, the TR was scary. Okay. Yeah.
So so you do have this mentality, and when you start getting into other series where they're rather than building a car from junk to race it, they're taking race cars that are coming down the scale. It's a different mentality of, this won't work. We'll stay up all night just to adjust this comfort thing, when in Lemons there's a harden up type thing. The other aspect of it is recognize, especially the builders and the long-term owners out there, your race car is going to evolve, and you have to incorporate all these things. Right now, Maryland, they just added the switch for the cool shirt. It's directly between the on-off switch and the push button for the ignition, which is like the worst place for it ever. And we all noticed it as soon as they installed it because they'd never had to run a cool shirt before. Jeff?
I just want to mention that, the mentality of suck it up, buttercup, and get out there when it's not perfect is great on the day of. But between races, you have a chance to fix that shit, so fix it.
It's good call.
All right. I think that wraps us up.
Everyone's most disappointing segment?
No.
Yay.
Yes.
Tip.
Okay.
And all the families around me are like, what is that guy doing?
Right?
Screaming just the tip.
What do you say?
Get the camper, Johnny. Get
okay.
Freddie, get the gun. Get the gun.
This week we're discussing how much to eat and drink during a race, okay? What you need to do, figure out what your body can handle. So some of our teammates, one named aptly Ralph, likes to throws up in the car. So he can't eat anything before it goes out. So he typically takes the first shift, and then I hope he eats after he's done racing. So
why is the guy who pukes not taking the last shift?
Because
he built the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he doesn't have to eat before it. But anyway, so one idea is eat breakfast really early in the day, so then you are energetic, but you're not full at race time. Some eat moderate meals like pasta or sandwiches to give them energy and stamina. IndyCar racer Charlie Kimball is a type 1 diabetic. Obviously, I Googled that. So he eats a grilled chicken breast before the race. Some real racers eat selected amounts so they don't mess up corner waiting. That's not us. So we are not that good.
or you just drink enough coffee to take that nice big quality juice.
Right? Thanks.
Where would we set the corner weights? Between my fat ass or other people's skinny ass? I won't call out people directly.
I conveniently set them for me, figuring that I'm kind of
because you're kind of in the middle of the road.
Yeah, exactly.
You are. You're the porridge that Dorothy ate.
Uh-huh.
All right, so if it's going to be a long shift, some food is needed to make sure you're eating stuff. We have goo, and that really makes a difference in 3-hour shifts. And I used to like to eat a bar, but don't eat stuff that's like acidic and stuff.
Okay,
what is goo? For people who don't run marathons and stuff, explain what goo is.
Goo is a small packet of energy. Some have caffeine in them. They are different kinds, and they will give you energy and caffeine.
It's basically gel full of sugar.
Yeah, well, some of them are B stacks.
Yeah. B
stacks are pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but it's like a yogurt or a go-gurt that it's just a little thing you can stick in your mouth and suck in real quick.
Yes, except no dairy, just
gel.
Just
gel. Goo is what it's called. Okay, thanks for that clarification. Okay, what's not smarting? What is not smart? Not eating anything, drinking too much, and not drinking enough water. Drinking too much alcohol when you're not driving. That's what drinking too much, but not drinking enough water. So consider a Camelback and a Goo for the car, especially if you're doing over 2 hours. My stomach has a clock in it, so anytime I race and I know that I'm going to be, it's so true. Anytime I know that when I'm racing it's going to be either lunch or dinner time, I know I'm going to start running on empty. So I usually try to eat as much as I can before, and then I try to save myself some lunch or dinner in case when I get out of the car and I'm super hungry, and there's nothing left because all your teammates ate all the food, you actually have something to eat.
Which is why we get radio calls. Don't eat all the pasta! I'm hungry!
Well, I never say don't eat the pasta because I don't eat the pasta, but I usually try to save myself some lunch. And you can never have enough water. Switching between that and Gatorade, even if you don't like it, which I don't really like, but it's always a good idea. So make sure you keep eating and know your body, know what you need.
I've really found it's amazing on the long shifts, like when I've gone the 3.5 to 4.5 hour shifts, and having that snack of a Goo or something on a full course yellow does sharpen you up a little bit. Like, it makes a little difference because you're out there, your heart rate's like 130 for the whole time you're out there for a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
So it's a low grade workout, and you've got to keep yourself fueled up. So don't neglect it.
It's insidious. You don't realize you're dehydrated. You don't realize you're hungry. You don't realize you're not sharp until it's too late.
Totally.
My last hella long shift, I couldn't get the Goo into my mouth.
Seriously.
I had no yellows. And I was like, I'm dying. But honestly, and we talked about driver comfort here, but you need to build a system so that you can get that Goo or get that straw into your mouth in a real good and easy way. And Chrissy, I think, saw it on. She was watching 24 Hours at Daytona or something. The bucket is amazing inside the door bars.
Yeah.
The one that we have?
Or you put the Camelbacks in the bucket.
Inside a bucket, it's real easy to switch. Nobody has to, the tube never falls where I can't find it.
Yeah.
And we put other things in there.
And we put the Goo in there too. And a quick tip for the Goo, don't tear it open, but start the tear before you get in the car, because when you have gloves on, you can't start a tear with your Muppet gloves on. But when it's already started, you can finish the tear and then reach up under your helmet and squeeze most of it in your mouth and throw it on the ground. So,
all right,
cool,
awesome.
So, next
week, folks, to the surprise of everyone, because I just typed this up, we're going to have live girls on the show. That's right, we're talking ladies in motorsports. Pros, amateurs, everything in between. We're looking for some possible guests. We haven't gotten some replies yet because we haven't sent the emails yet, but that's okay. In the meantime, get a hold of us on our social medias, Everyone Racers Facebook page, Instagram or Twitter at everyone.racers, or email us at everyone.racers. We're going to let that show kind of freeform as it happens. Ladies in motorsports, because we need more of them.
Yep.
Cool. So if you're a lady and if you're a podcast listener, I'd like to say... Thank you for downloading us.
Yeah. Hey, quick, Jeff, stop. Let Mental read it, because with the speaker on one microphone and you on the other one, it didn't sound great in the intro. So Mental can read
go
us
ahead,
out
Mental.
this time.
Look at that. On the fly production. Folks, thanks for downloading us. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Everyone Racers. We hope you to join us in the world of driving, racing, and building, because everyone can be a racer, even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button on iTunes. We're told we're on Google Play. We're told we're not on Google Play. We'll figure it out. But wherever you get your podcast, or just go straight to the Shout Engine page. If you have any questions, want to give us some show ideas, or drop us a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers, or like the Race Team Facebook page, 3 Pedal Mafia Lemons Race Team. If you'd rather not venture into the void that is the Book of Faces so they can steal more of your information and manipulate your data, just email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at everyone.racers. Thanks again, and until next week, keep the shiny side up. Unless, like us, there is no shiny side, then just keep the wheels down.